Hello and welcome back to Detective Comic Talks, the podcast about DC Comics by DC Comics fans. If you're new around here and enjoy listening to us talk about the DC Universe, please don't forget to subscribe and like this video to keep up to date with all the latest content from the channel. Of course, this week we're following on from last week's discussion about the Batman Arkham universe. Last week we discussed Batman Arkham Asylum and Arkham City in depth. And this week we're going to discuss Batman Arkham Origins and Arkham Knight. And also, we're going to discuss the future of the Batman Arkham series. Welcome back from last week. You probably heard them on the wonderful podcast Eat, Sleep, Suplex, Retweet. It's Daniel.
How you doing? It's been a minute.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a long week, I think. It's been tough.
It's just trying to stave off boredom with lockdown now.
Yeah. So, Batman Arkham Origins.
Did you find a body?
No. And next time, keep your other assassins out of my way.
You had your shot, Deathstroke. But you're not the only assassin in town. And the night is young.
Oh boy. What do we say about this one?
Of course, guys, Batman Arkham Origins came out in 2013. No longer being developed by Rocksteady Studios. It is WB Montreal that produced this one. Released through Warner Bros. Interactive Entertainment. The game is set 5 years prior to Batman Arkham Asylum. And that means we have a new Batman and a new Joker. No longer do we have Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill. They are replaced by Roger Craig Smith and Troy Baker.
It was a very wise idea to have just two different actors come in, because it would be one thing to have Conroy and Hamill try to sound younger, but I feel that would probably detract from what they could do for their actual performance. Yeah. So it allowed two new actors to come in and take their spin on it. And to be honest, it did lead to some recurring parts for them. Like, they have gone on to play Batman and Joker again in other Batman media. So
yeah,
I think well in this.
Yeah, I think Roger Craig Smith, he is now one of the go-to voices for Batman.
He's done a couple of animated pieces that were put out, most particularly, I believe it was called Batman Unlimited Animal Mayhem, something like that.
Yeah, and he also reprises though in the animated feature Batman Ninja.
Yeah, he did a very good job of playing Batman. Of course, Roger Craig Smith, we all know him mainly as Sonic the Hedgehog, Chris from Resident Evil, and probably his more famous role, Ezio Auditore from Assassin's Creed 2.
Yes. Of course, Troy Baker, we know Troy Baker from absolutely everything these days.
Yeah, if there's a video game out, chances are Troy Baker's in there, but to name a few titles, he's one of the voices for the boss in Saints Row, mainly 3 and 4. He is Joel in The Last of Us. He recently popped up as Sam Drake in Uncharted 4. And he's also been known as the voice of Booker DeWitt in the BioShock series.
Yes, he was.
He is a very, very talented man. Freakishly too good. I would love to be as good as he is.
Yes. So Troy's taking on the role famously made by Mark Hamill. Unthankless task. I mean, for anybody to try and replace Mark Hamill in any form of media, it's next to impossible. But I tell you what, Troy, although many will say he mimics Hamill in a lot of ways, I do think he does a great job. And at moments, you have to ask yourself, is that Hamill? Is it Baker? You don't know. And until someone tells you it's Troy Baker, you go, I can definitely hear, the Troy Bakerisms, and I don't hear the Hamillisms all too often.
Yeah, like the main thing with this particular instance, when they're bringing someone in to play a younger version of the character, is, well, you want to try and retain elements of the original voice. You want to try and put your own stamp on it, which I think, like, Roger already had that gift with, like, the younger sound and the voice he was able to put on to be Bruce Wayne and Batman. It worked fine there. For Baker, it was more, how can he, like, pay homage to what was there before with Hamill, but still not just sound like a complete rip-off of Hamill. And he put his own stamp on it. Even the first gameplay reveal that was done, where you see him in, and he just goes to Batman like, nice of you to drop in just on time. That set the bar for me right away.
Yes, I think that what Toy gives us is what Toy had to give us. I think if we had a different voice completely for Joker and tried to say, oh, this is still canon to the Arkham series, I think then it would have been really difficult to accept Arkham Origins. The fact that they remain faithful to the original voice actors, it really helps this game be accepted, because it does have a lot of flaws, this game, doesn't it, Daniel?
They obviously had to do the best that they could to try and fit in with the game, because my understanding is that this game was not originally planned to be part of the series, because Rocksteady, when they were preparing Arkham Knight, which we will discuss later on, Arkham Knight was going to be the first game on PS4. So, and on Xbox One, which meant that they had to take a lot longer to develop the games. Arkham Knight eventually would release in 2015, so they had to put out something just to fill the gap in the meantime.
Yeah.
So while Rocksteady were busy with preparing Arkham Knight, Warner Brother Games Montreal decided they were given the task of creating a game essentially to be, for lack of a better word, filler.
Yes.
And while they did do some interesting parts of the game, there is aspects of the story I really do like, but there was a lot that, I'll be honest, even now I'm trying to remember.
Well, I'll briefly attempt to remind you. The game's set Christmas Eve. Batman intervenes a jailbreak at Blackgate Penitentiary, led by Black Mask, who eludes Commissioner Loeb and escapes. Left to battle the hired assassin Killer Croc, Batman prevails and learns Croc is the first of 8 of the world's greatest deadly assassins in Gotham, vying to claim a $50 million bounty placed on Batman's head by Black Mask. So one thing, again, this series, and this game introduced is the inclusion of Black Mask for the first time in the Arkham series. Of course, we do see him in Arkham City briefly. You can spot him getting a beatdown by the Arkham City police, but this is the first time we see him in all his glory. But Roman Sionis, the mob boss.
Interesting that they decided to go Black Mask so heavily in the trailers when they were releasing the game, because you wouldn't have initially thought that Black Mask would be the major villain.
Yeah, well, it wasn't, but obviously in the end, as we're going to discuss, he wasn't the main villain, but it's a different villain, Black Mask. It's not a villain that's heavily used in Batman lore. Famously, most people know him from Under the Hood. He's quite an active character in that. And of course, recently Birds of Prey. He's portrayed by Ewan McGregor. In a very different way to what he's portrayed here. Again, in Birds of Prey, he's very flamboyant. This version of Arkham Origins, he's very much so the mafia, gang lord type boss.
When they had to bring in Black Mask, they essentially established it that at this time he was the prominent crime lord. Yep. At this point, other people who are there, particularly Penguin, who is featured in the game, he's not fully known as Penguin yet.
Yes,
like he's referred to as Oswald Cobblepot, so he's not established that level of like crime lord. He's still very much a go-to guy for not just the Rogues Gallery, but even for Batman as well.
Yeah, I think that version of the Penguin, like we were saying in the previous episode, I like that version better. I like the go-to guy, the middleman, Oswald Cobblepot. I like that version of the Penguin better, because I don't believe the Penguin could go toe-to-toe, fist-to-fist with Batman. He is better working as the middleman for the crime bosses, and of course someone for Batman to interrogate to lead on to more information.
The rest of the cast for the game would fill out a lot more, with the 8 assassins that would be hunting Batman for the game. So in addition to Killer Croc, who we have already mentioned, we have the Electrocutioner,
yep.
a guy who essentially just uses shock gloves. That's the only way I can describe it. A very unremarkable villain in this game.
Although those shock gloves will come in handy for this later on.
They do, yes. We have Firefly, who is part of a middle part in the game set on the main bridge going into Gotham.
Yep.
You have Copperhead, a contortionist who has an expertise in poisons.
I think one thing you can say already with these names you're naming off is that WB Montreal didn't want to touch too many of the main dogs, so they were left with very C-list villains. And that's obvious in this game. You know, they're trying to establish new characters that a lot of people aren't familiar with.
We also have the Master Martial Artist Shiva. She makes an appearance as well. And very interesting dynamic between Shiva and Batman from what I can remember in the game. We then, completing the set, have returning villains from the previous games. We have Bane. We have Deadshot returning from his brief appearance in Arkham City.
Yep.
But leading the pack is Deathstroke.
That one, if there's going to be one thing you'll take away if you're playing Arkham Origins, and that isn't a lot, you know, I'm not going to lie and say this game's fantastic. I think it's underrated. I think it gets a real bum rap. I think there's a lot of negatives in this game, but one of the major positives is this character, Deathstroke. And when Slade Wilson comes into the fold, you see arguably one of the greatest video game battles of all time.
Yeah, it's more than just, you know, try and beat up a guy, spam the attack button and get him. You're actually having to fight.
Yep.
Which,
yep.
I like the boss battles where you actually feel you're having to fight to survive. And this is one of them.
This is one of those moments in video game history where you smash your controller, where you put your hands up and say, I give up. You know, it's that difficult a boss battle. You know, it's one of those ones where you better make sure you save that game as soon as you complete that, because you don't have to do that again.
Particularly with one of the things that was brought into this game. So, Arkham City did feature a new game plus mode. Essentially, you go into the game with all your gadgets and upgrades you have at the end of your first playthrough. Only this time, it's on high difficulty and there are no counter icons. So you have to try and play it as, you know, as much of a shoot as you possibly can. But in this game, they decide to one-up it. You have a mode called I Am the Knight, where your goal is play the game beginning to end without dying once. Because if you die, you start all over.
Yes.
I can tell you, I have never attempted it.
It just sounds scary, even the thought of it. I think
gamers out there who will have thrived on doing it, who had a lot more spare time than I did at that point.
I think the idea of even doing that, and then a rogue shoots you from a distance, or that moment where you can't counter the red sensor comes up, and you know you can't counter the move that's about to happen to you. You could just imagine someone playing that game and that moment happening and going, "Oh no, there's nothing I could have done there."
Yeah, it would have induced a lot of rage for many gamers, I feel.
I think one thing as well we have to acknowledge when it comes to Arkham Origins, no longer do we have the writing team at Rocksteady, nor do we have legendary Batman writer Paul Dini on writing duties this time. It's WB's own in-house writing guys, and you can definitely tell they're not necessarily able to construct a solid story. It's very messy. You know, villains appear out of nowhere. A lot of backstory isn't explored. And
when it comes to this one, because of how Arkham Origins came about, I feel this was you could tell that some of this was rushed together.
Yeah.
And it mainly does suffer, and particularly in a lot of glitchy parts. Not glitchy parts. So there's a lot of parts later on that is very kind of stop and start, and then even to try and tie it in Arkham Asylum, the only bit you get that even has any relevance to it is a brief bit of audio you hear during the credits from Quincy Sharp. That's it.
I think one thing about this game that is notoriously known as at launch, the game was notorious for lagging, no continue option. The game consistently failed people. And one of the major things I cannot believe is there was never ever a patch introduced to fix this. The game was just allowed.
Never a patch?
There was never a patch released. The game.
I thought there was one. Jesus.
No, there was never a patch. If you play the game now, I think obviously it was never released in any remastered format. But you can play the game if you have PlayStation Plus. You can play the game via that, and it's still as laggy. It's still got the consistent bumps, freezes, and it takes a really good game. You know, it makes it unplayable.
It would be something that would really put people off playing the game, but thankfully there were people who persisted and continued to play the game and would actually get to explore the story that the writing team presented for this one.
I think that another main thing that came for this game is WB were aiming to create a spin-off movie, and in this game we see for the first time the appearance of Amanda Waller, who, if anybody knows, she is the leader and creator of Task Force X, the Suicide Squad. And in this game, especially the post-credits, we see Amanda recruiting to the Suicide Squad, which would lead to DC animated movie Batman Assault on Arkham, which, again, relates to nothing in the story. It's completely its own thing, but it was Warner's trying to create a spin-off property from the game. And, you know, I kind of feel like it falls in deaf ears.
They created this, they had Amanda Waller appear, and she does, reappear in Assault on Arkham, but the problem was Assault on Arkham was done differently to this game. The main differences being that Kevin Conroy returns as Batman.
Yeah.
And Wally Winger, who plays Riddler in the Arkham series, is replaced. And, of course, not knocking the portrayals, I thought, obviously Kevin Conroy is Kevin Conroy, and Gray did a very good job as Riddler in Assault on Arkham. It was a new version of it. I quite liked it. But it was having that change of cast already, because it was already a big move losing Conroy and Hamill for this game. But to all of a sudden change the cast again in animated video that came out afterwards, not ideal. Yeah,
I think Assault on Arkham will cover, again, we will cover that on this show down the line. I feel like that movie is its own thing, it's not relevant, and I feel like it was Warner's trying to be a little bit cheeky, trying to make a quick buck, but also trying to establish for the first time the idea of the Suicide Squad, which would later become live action in 2016 with David Ayer's movie. I believe that Warner will just laying the seeds, as you will. But possibly, as we're going to discuss, could that scene be a hint towards a possible future Suicide Squad game? We'll discuss that at the end of this podcast. So, one thing that Arkham Origins did introduce was an online mode, a multiplayer online mode for the first time in the Arkham series.
I'll confess, I never actually tried the online mode.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have problems with it, but I actually think it's really good. You either play as one of the goons and you're trying to evade Batman and Robin, or you are Batman and Robin and you're trying to obviously take down the goons. It's quite a cool, again, it's very simplistic, it's very of its time, but I thought it was something different. It was definitely something that Origins brought to the table, which wasn't available in the past Rocksteady releases.
By the sounds of it, and even from gameplay I've seen, I think it was quite a bold move for them to try and do an online mode like that.
I think they had to try something different, because what they released, was not as very inferior to what they previously released in the series. And also, I think one of the big things about this game is the map is massive. The game is massive. Everything about Arkham Origins is massive, apart from the story. The story is the only thing that's letting this game down, and I think mainly you can point towards the non-inclusion of Paul Dini in this story, because I believe if he came back, I think we could have had a lot tighter and better game.
Most likely we could have had something better, but I think it's also just more that they were pressed for time. And so I think because they were trying to fill gaps and tie it into other media, there was a pressure and there was a lot of confusion going on. But to go into the story and sort of talk everyone through what actually happens in here. So as we mentioned previously, it's Christmas Eve. Batman has 8 assassins now coming after him, all hired by Black Mask. And while he is trying to track down Black Mask, he encounters Oswald Cobblepot, fends off Deathstroke and Electrocutioner, and finds out that seemingly Black Mask is actually dead. And that someone may potentially be impersonating Black Mask. He's also starting to hear a name called Joker. While he needs more information for this, he does go to the GCPD, who at this point are hunting Batman, and it's very corrupt at this point. And he just so happens to encounter the one member of the police force who is not corrupt, Captain James Gordon.
Yes, obviously this is what we were discussing in the previous podcast about the origins of the relationship between James Gordon and Batman, and how they come together for the very first time and create, obviously, their plan, to rid Gotham of the crime and the scum and the villainy. I think it's so rich. If there's one thing about this game you can say is the chemistry between James Gordon and Bruce. It's so strong, you can definitely see the seeds of the relationship forming, which will go forward in Arkham Knight, which takes place, over a decade later, and you can see that same relationship, how it's nurtured and progressed to, obviously, at that point, both of them are very in their senior years, and, of course, they've done this for years and years, but this is just the beginning, obviously, what we see here in Arkham Origins.
Yeah, this was the starter point, because at this point, Gordon is he's trying to follow his orders and apprehend Batman. But at the same time, Batman's trying to show him, look, I'm not the bad guy, see, it's them. And Batman does end up finding, Gordon and Batman end up forced into an uneasy, alliance. But Batman does get very early help from Gordon's daughter Barbara, the future Batgirl and then later Oracle. He then manages to find out that Black Mask has been kidnapped by Joker, and presumably so that way Joker can just take what he has in the Gotham Merchants Bank. And when he goes to apprehend Joker, he finds Black Mask there taunting a couple of people, one of whom, when he takes off the bag, is actually Roman Sionis himself. And then it's revealed that, all along, Joker has been posing as Black Mask. It was Joker who set the bounty on Batman.
I think that reveal there is just up there with classic Joker, He's always the master manipulator. He's always got a plan. Although he says he doesn't, he's always got a plan. And when we get to finally see Troy Baker become the Joker, it is just that magical moment, regardless that it isn't Hamill anymore voicing the role. It's just that magical moment that you realise that you've been played the whole way through it. But just going back a bit, on your build-up to tracking Roman Sionis down to the bank, you have to go to his penthouse where you discover there's been a murder. And this is where the game introduces a new element that we hadn't seen before, and it was the detective vision, but you could replay sequences, which is such a great idea that they brought into this game.
Yeah, it's a kind of augmented reality in a sense. So as you scan elements of the crime scene, you actually begin to develop a little animation of what happened. Essentially, Batman creating the timeline of events.
I think that it's something that, again, after a lot of this game will be dismissed in future games, but after it was implemented here, again, it was brought forward to Arkham Knight, and that just shows you when Rocksteady adapted something from WB Montreal's game, it shows you they had something good there, and they take it forward into Arkham Knight.
Like, it is one of the concepts that they introduced in this game I really do like. I thought it was a neat thing to add in.
Yeah. Because it was already a great idea. It was already a great idea in the first place, having the detective vision, but now to increase it and add something more to it, I think is great.
Yeah, definitely. They had to improve it somehow. Like one of the main complaints about this game is that there's not a lot of improvement from this game, like from Arkham City compared to like how this game presents itself. But I think at least it made up for it, at least by what you got story-wise in some elements and with the augmented reality in detective vision.
I think one thing you definitely have to say about Arkham Origins is this isn't a bad game. You know, it's just unfortunately came after two astonishing games. I think if this game had come out and there was no Arkham Asylum, no Arkham City, I think you would say this is a pretty good game. But it's just the fact of it expects you to know. The game expects you to have played both Asylum and City from the get-go. And again, you know, it's got that Star Wars effect when you go to the prequels, where it just expects you to know how things were before. They don't explain things. The game just starts instantly. You're expected to know the controls, the buttons, and I think that's another thing that lets the game down big time.
It's something that I feel they could have done with avoiding that risk, but it's when it's a rushed title, especially like that, it's going to be a struggle.
Yeah. Well, I feel like we've kind of said all we need to say. I think one of the main things going towards the end of the game is you do have an incredible boss battle against Bane. Bane, who is no longer the Titan-filled monstrosity we see in Asylum and City. He is back to being crime boss, buffed up Bane. And it's a really, really, really exciting boss battle at the end of the game.
Yes, Bane, throughout one other element we'll mention about the game story is that throughout the story, Alfred is begging with Batman to not go out and fight. At this point, Alfred is against what Batman is doing. And Bane, through the game, actually deduces who Batman is. Yeah. And so he storms Wayne Manor and leaves Alfred for dead. And you get one of my favourite scenes with Batman trying to save the only family he has left. Again,
the combination of Bruce and Alfred, you know, it's just incredible. You know, obviously, in all versions of Batman, we've seen different ways the relationship works. Obviously, Michael Keaton and Michael Gough. Obviously, again, with Christian Bale and Michael Caine. It's the heart of Batman. It's what he's all about. This is his father figure. This is the guy that's brought him up. And in this game, at that moment, you feel for Bruce. You know, at that moment, it actually does help that you have played City, because you do know Alfred and you do know what he means to Bruce. In that moment, you can see Bruce's pain as he's desperately trying to save Alfred. And of course, throughout the game, you can hear Alfred's intentions. He's only there looking out for Bruce. And to watch Bruce, you know, a younger Bruce be so naive, you know, be very dismissive, and he's just hell-bent on completing his vow, and he's not thinking about anybody else.
But the telling part is when Alfred just says, like, what were you doing? Bruce just goes, you know, I can't save them. I can't even defend my own home. And Alfred at that point just gets up, turns on the radio and just reminds him there are people who need him. There are people who need Batman. And that is when finally Alfred and Bruce are on the same wavelength, and Alfred becomes the support Batman looks to instinctively.
I think as well, just before we wrap up, we need to mention in this game they finally get to enter the Batcave for the first time.
Yep.
And it's stunning. It's exactly like we'd imagine the Batcave to be, including being able to transport on the Batwing, which is very, very helpful in a very big map. Being able to use the Batwing. Of course, you don't fly the Batwing, but use it to skip to checkpoints was a very
I think the one thing that, when they were making the map that big, they needed to put a fast travel ability in, because it would have probably dragged a bit for the gamers if you had to traverse the whole way, which I know they do for, like, you do have to do that for a part, but that is for story reasons.
I definitely think, though, bringing in the Batwing was a great inclusion. Of course, it would have been great if we got to drive the Batwing, but, beggars can't be, we've got to take what we get. Just starting up then, obviously, the game was released in 2013, in between Arkham City and Arkham Knight. It was met by mixed reviews. It did, I'd say mixed to positive reviews. Critics, obviously, very critical of the technical issues in the game and just the lack of innovation in the gameplay mechanics. Again, a lot of critics very critical on the multiplayer aspects of the game, found it very unnecessary. But, of course, people very much so praised Roger Craig Smith's performance, Troy Baker's performance, and, of course, the storyline that's put through the game, as I've mentioned, by Alfred and James Gordon. A lot of that was praised by critics.
It was worthy of the praise, but then there was also other elements that got put out. So, obviously, when they said we're going to do Batman's origin story, you would think that would mean you would get to see Batman go through his training, what it took him to become Batman. Nope, you get that as DLC. You get a DLC pack where you get to see Batman when he is on his travels in the world. It's a topic that even annoys dogs. Put it that way. When you look at the DLC pack, Batman is in he's in some kind of temple. I can't remember where it's meant to be, but he's completing his training and learning how to fight and do the Predator challenges. Then you get, I believe it's called a Cold Heart.
Yes.
The DLC mission that introduces Mr. Freeze.
Yes. And I think one thing you can definitely take from that DLC is the Batsuit Batman wears in that DLC is awesome.
Yep, it's probably the Batsuit that when they were creating Batman vs. Superman, they went, that's actually a good idea.
Yes, I absolutely love that Batsuit. Of course, that was the start of the DLC generation. Hit and miss again with the DLC. Again, coming towards wrapping up this conversation, Arkham Origins, we do see at the end of the game the Joker. Again, towards the end of this game, we do see the Joker come in contact with Miss Harleen Quinzel for the first time and manipulate her into becoming Harley Quinn.
Yep, Harleen rather does feature at the end at Blackgate Penitentiary where she's working as a psychiatrist, and you even get this wonderful moment. Arkham Asylum, guys, not Blackgate. Well, she was Arkham Asylum in the game is closed at this point.
Yeah, I know, but I just feel like it's one of those like, it makes sense in the game, but I just feel like, come on, get it right.
I believe what happens is she eventually does move to Arkham Asylum when it's reopened.
Yeah,
that's my theory on it anyway.
But yeah, just like that theory.
Yeah, I'll take that just for now.
But as well, a lot of this game, we do have the turning voice actors. Of course, we have the fabulous Troy Baker in the game, but obviously we also have the return of what's his name? What's his name again? Plays Penguin.
Nolan North.
Okay, sorry. Of course, one of the main aspects of the Arkham games is the return of characters, and we do have the return of the fabulous Nolan North as the Penguin, and all of his bother East London voice.
You're right, lad.
He's great in this game, of course.
You want me to call you Butler?
One cool aspect that I just feel like doesn't get mentioned is we actually do have the return of Robert Castone. I think that's how you pronounce it. Sorry, I'm butchering that. He played Harvey Bullock in Batman the Animated Series. We haven't seen him in any Batman content probably for about 15 years by that point. But he returns for a quick scene as Harvey Bullock at the end of the movie as well.
It was a nice way to bring it in. Like, it shows that they still were trying to pay attention to what had come before, not just from the game's perspective, but also from the overall like Batman media universe as a whole.
Yeah, I definitely I want to see Robert return in animation in the future. I definitely want to see. I want anybody actually who's still living from Batman the animated series from the Timverse in the 90s to return as much as possible. I've already said my gripe in the last podcast about Lord and Lester. Why is he not playing Nightwing in these games? But we'll get to that in the next game when we discuss Batman Arkham Knight. So, final thoughts, Daniel. What's your final thoughts on Batman Arkham Origins?
I think a good game, just really bad timing.
Totally agree. Again, WB Montreal had their hands tied. They were forced into making a sequel to a really, really, really popular franchise. I think if they had the opportunity, which we might discuss at the end here, opportunity to design something off their own back, I think they made a better job, but we'll discuss that after we discuss the next topic, which is Arkham Knight.
Gotham, this is your only warning. Abandon the city, or I will unleash your greatest fears.
Arkham Knight was released in 2015. It was developed by Rocksteady Studios, returning after missing out on Arkham Origins. The game was written by Sefton Hill. Again, this time, no Paul Dini. Daniel, no Paul Dini at all on writing duties.
No, we have Sefton Hill, Martin Lancaster, and Ian Ball teaming together to craft the story of Arkham Knight, and it was heavily inspired by multiple elements from the comics over the years. But this game is written essentially as the conclusion, seemingly, to the Arkham story.
Yeah, I think one thing I discovered in researching this game was it was also in collaboration with Jeff Johns, and I'm like, what? I didn't know that. Jeff Johns, of course, famously at the moment is getting a lot of heat over the Zack Snyder, release the Snyder Cut campaign. He's been accused of trying to force Zack out the door, but obviously Jeff Johns famously wrote a lot of stuff for Green Lantern, Flash, and his new 52 run on Justice League, in my opinion, is perfection. So I didn't actually know that Jeff Johns helped collaborate to write this game, but that's a really cool thing to learn.
Well, it wasn't something that I knew either, so that's a good one to know.
Of course, one of the main things before we discuss the plot of Arkham Knight is this game famously or infamously introduced the Batmobile for the first time as a playable vehicle in the franchise.
The one thing I will say about the Batmobile, well, two things. One, I did enjoy driving about and actually driving the Batmobile. The second thing, and this is one of the main criticisms of Arkham Knight, I feel it relied too heavily on the Batmobile.
Yes, totally.
Now, this game we're back to the timeline of Arkham City, so this is now 9 months following the death of the Joker. And at this point, Batman is still very much in his own, personal bubble. He is hardly, being open with anyone about how he feels ever since it happened. And at this point, it's Halloween. How fitting that this is Halloween.
Yes.
Easily one of the best story decisions they ever made for this.
Quickly before you say that, how ironic is, obviously because of the current pandemic we're in at the moment, the Robert Pattinson Batman movie has been pushed by 2 months and will now come out in October. How fitting we're going to get next year a Batman movie in October at last.
We've needed one before this, but I will happily take this one when it comes out.
Yeah, the closest we got was Riddler and Two-Face busting into Wayne Manor and Batman Forever, trick or treat style. That's the closest we got to a Halloween Batman movie.
Well, now we're getting something that we actually want. To continue on with the story, so on Halloween night, the customers in a diner are they're enjoying their night as normal, but then they all start killing each other and hallucinating. And the public are all looking at screens about news coverage for it. And then you hear the voice of Scarecrow, now played by John Noble, very talented actor. You'll have seen him probably in the top credits that come to mind, Lord of the Rings, Two Towers, and in Fringe, where he played Walter Bishop. He comes over the tannoy and just says that what happened in the diner only used 5 ounces of his toxin.
Can I just say before you go on, this interpretation of Scarecrow is the most terrifying I've ever seen Jonathan Crane ever, period.
I actually am in love with this version of Scarecrow more than other ones I've seen.
And that's no shade.
This to me is Scarecrow.
No shade to Cillian Murphy, of course, who played the Scarecrow in Batman Begins and Chris Nolan 2005. But this is the Scarecrow I want to see on the big screen. I want to see the scary Scarecrow, fear toxin, hallucinating. I want to see this version of Scarecrow in live action.
I would happily see this version of Scarecrow in live action, but I think with how this game done it, if this is the only time I ever see this version of Scarecrow, I am going to be happy with it because it was so brilliant.
Totally.
You can't go wrong with it. To go back to the story, so Scarecrow reveals only 5 ounces of his toxin was used, and he threatens that, in his words, tomorrow will seem like child's play, and Gotham evacuates overnight. Of course, the only people who hang around are the Rogues Gallery and their goons. Because why not? And Batman goes to try and investigate Scarecrow's toxin, but it's not always straightforward. And he ends up encountering a new figure. A figure who calls himself the Arkham Knight, who has turned up with a ridiculously heavily armed militia.
And one thing I will say about the Arkham Knight is, wow, that guy's design is stunning.
Like, when I saw that initial design, how it paralleled Batman, not just in stature, but even the design of the outfit, it's a beautiful outfit.
Of course, as we go along, we'll discuss the origins of the Arkham Knight as we go on. Of course, that was one of the major talking points to build up to the game. Who was this Arkham Knight? Was it a member of the Rogues Gallery? Was it someone new? We weren't sure. But when the Arkham Knight comes on screen, as you're busting his chemicals, he's frightening. His chest, he's got that light that's constantly moving. You're not sure if it's human, is it not human?
Mm-hmm.
He's just an imposing figure and definitely fitting to end this franchise.
Like, definitely. And it's very fitting that this scene is taking place at Ace Chemicals because Batman is exposed to the toxin while he's trying to shut down the plant from exploding. A Scarecrow has essentially turned the building into a toxin bomb. Yeah. And so he's trying to shut it down. But as he is he's able to reduce the blast radius so that way it would only cover just the building. Problem is, the hallucination that Batman is greeted with is a villain that he essentially helped create in Ace Chemicals, the Joker.
Miss me?
And we find out that Batman has, over a period of time, been collecting people who are still showing signs of the Joker from the blood transfusions, because in Arkham City, Joker sent out his infected blood to hospitals, and they were used in blood transfusions. Batman was able to help cure the majority of the people, but he managed to round up individuals who were showing signs of actually morphing into the Joker. Like, their appearances was changing, their hair was going green, they were starting to actually act like Joker.
Yeah. And
Gordon points out that he sees 5 chambers, but only 4 of them have people in it. And Batman tells him, we'll have the 5th one soon.
So, of course, as we'll discuss this in this podcast, we'll find out who that 5th one was. But initially, when that moment happened, when the Joker returned, I jumped out my seat. I knew Hamill said he wouldn't be coming back. when you hear that "miss me" in that moment, you jump off your seat and you're like, what is that, Hamill? And of course, as the dialogue continues, you go, oh yeah, that's Hamill. But it was an amazing thing to keep that so under wraps, to not have any leaks that Hamill was determined. To many, you hear that and go, oh, is that Troy Baker? But it's definitely Hamill.
Yeah, like, in a time now where it's so very hard to keep things under wraps, like, we discuss it a lot on Eat, Sleep, Suplex, Retweets sometimes about how hard it is for wrestling businesses to be able to keep, like, big reveals they want to do under wraps. And then it's like, to give a wrestling example, when the Hardy Boys returned at WrestleMania 33, nobody knew. Like, you had a slight inkling because they were wrestling in the town the day before, but you didn't know it was actually going to happen, so it was a delight when it did. But with this one, with Hamill reappearing the way that he did, it caught me off guard as well. I was very happy the minute I heard him, and I'm like, oh, we're getting some Joker.
Yeah. And it's not even, at this time, we have to remember, 2015, Hamill was heavily in pre-production for Star Wars The Force Awakens. At this moment, Hamill's light had suddenly reappeared. He started getting a lot more acting roles. I thought maybe, he maybe got too big for Joker. But I'll tell you one thing I will say about Mark Hamill is he'll never, ever let you forget that Joker role saved his career. That, taking on that role of the Joker, provided him, not only just with a different side of his career, but also, financially, that kept him living for a long time. And I think one thing I can say of Mark Hamill is he, even though now he's reawoken, his star's shining, he's starting to get put in lots of films, he still makes time to play the Joker, and I think, for me, that, shows to me how great that man is.
He is a man of many talents, and he continues to show it in this game, even with a darker version of Joker, which I really liked, because obviously Batman's head is not it's not the sunniest place in Glasgow, put it that way. And Joker fits in so well. And he even, the first thing he says to him, just like, isn't this what you've always wanted? Me deep inside you. That is just, you hear it, and yes, A, it's creepy, and B, you're thinking, it shows this kind of relationship that Batman and Joker have always had. They're yin and yang.
Yeah, of course.
That will be the case throughout.
As Heath Ledger said, we're destined to do this forever.
Oh yes. Long live Heath Ledger.
Yep.
Returning to the story aspect, Batman learns that Scarecrow has obtained a device called the Cloudburst, which he is going to use to spread his toxin throughout Gotham. And while this is all going on, it appears that Oracle has been kidnapped by Scarecrow and actually exposed to the toxin so much that she commits suicide.
Yes.
And Batman is horrified at what he witnessed.
That is horrifying. One thing again we have to mention, that this game was rated mature, and again it really does earn that what we're going to discuss happens in this game is really grim.
Mm-hmm. It's not like one of your happy go-to games. Like, I would say Arkham Asylum is a easier game to go into compared to this. So with Oracle seemingly dead, Batman finds out that Harley Quinn has seized the facility he's using for the Joker patients. And in one of the aspects of the game I do love, you get to team up with Batman, you get to team up with Robin, and then later on in another mission, you team up with Nightwing. And you actually get to fend off the villains together. You can play briefly as Robin for these sequences as well. But in the midst of the skirmish with the other Joker patients and Harley Quinn, it's revealed that the fifth person who will be becoming Joker is Batman himself. Yep. The fifth pod is for Batman.
Yeah. Well, obviously going back there, what you were saying about finally we get the Bat family playable in this game. Yes, at last, as I said in the last podcast, that moment when Tim Drake teased that he possibly could get involved in the thick of the action, and Bruce dismisses him. You're like, oh no, I was so disappointed. To finally get the chance to use Tim Drake and then later Dick Grayson was a joy. And both characters had their own styles. Of course, Tim Drake had his famous staff. You could use that. Of course, later on, when Dick comes into the fold, when you're encountering Penguin, he has his electrical sticks that come into play. And, of course, the best feature of the game is the dual takedown mode.
Like, basically essentially what happens is as you build up your strikes, you build up a meter, and then when the meter hits full, you press L1 or the left trigger, and you'll then do a double team takedown, which also allows you to switch characters.
Which, of course, if I'm being very, greedy, I would ask if I could play as Nightwing the whole game, but of course, it is Batman Arkham Knight, so you have to take what you can get. Just the wee bits you get of playing as Nightwing and Robin, I think that's enough for me. I really, really enjoy both side quests that involve them.
They were both used very well in the game, so I was quite happy to see them here. And their involvement in the game doesn't stop here. So, Robin is captured by Scarecrow, and Batman now has to not only save Gotham from the fear toxin that is spread thanks to the cloudburst, he does eventually find an uneasy ally in Poison Ivy. And Poison Ivy and Batman have a beautiful mission where they fend off the Arkham militia. And eventually Ivy, it's like, she does save the city, but she sacrifices herself with the line that simply, it's a callback to a line earlier in the game where she just says, nature always wins, as normality is restored briefly to Gotham as the toxin is gone. And she just disintegrates away, not quite Infinity War style, but she disintegrates away, and when you go back to that spot, you do find a little flower that's grown in her place.
Yeah.
So, we later find Barbara's alive!
Who would have thought it?
I know, it's amazing.
I mean, one thing about Barbara, she can't die. I mean, Joker's had a go at it, the Scarecrow's had a go at it.
But the girl's unkillable.
Of course. Of course, I love Oracle, I love Barbara, just to let everybody know. I love that character. I even love the character even more when she becomes Oracle and is in the chair, because she's a massive, speaking point for people who are disabled, that they still can offer a lot to the cause. And I think that was a great creation to have Oracle in the chair, and the eyes and ears of Batman, and of course, the Birds of Prey.
I agree, Oracle is one of the most powerful characters, purely from an intellectual standpoint, which makes her a very good go-to character for a lot of things. So, with Barbara being revealed to be alive, Batman does go in to apprehend the Arkham Knight. But the thing is, throughout this whole period of time, Batman has occasionally been seeing Joker give him some little trips down memory lane, shall we say.
Yes.
All relating around another character. Because, and I'm going to admit this right now, I telegraphed it about 20 minutes into the game.
Mm-hmm.
The Arkham Knight is revealed to be none other than the Robin who seemingly was dead all along, Jason Todd.
Spoilers.
Oh, did we not say that? But, so...
come on, guys, listen, the game's 5 years old. If you haven't, if you don't know, then what are you doing listening to a DC podcast?
Fair point. So, Batman does fend off Jason Todd. Todd does assume essentially the Red Hood identity from here on out. He sheds off the original mask and replaces it with a red one.
How do you feel, Daniel, before we go on, how do you feel about the identity of the Arkham Knight being Jason Todd? How do you feel, build up the marketing campaign for it to be a character that, of course, we had been introduced to before, mainly because I think the mature angle that character entails wasn't possible to be seen in the game until now, until they've actually got that mature rating and we were able to see that character and his most famous, form, the death of Robin.
Honest thought that I have is I would have much rathered it was one of the cops from Arkham Origins. The problem was they teased Arkham Knight the whole time as a brand new character. What they really should have said is the Arkham Knight is a brand new persona we have created. Because like when Joker heavily starts speaking about Jason Todd at the start, like earlier on, and it's seemingly for no reason, but then you realize, oh wait, it's going to be the Arkham Knight.
Yeah,
because the big question obviously is who's the Arkham Knight, and Joker just saying that I think just gave it away very early.
I think that is the one flaw with Jason Todd not being established prior to this game, is when they try and give you the backstory to Jason Todd, all of a sudden all the nuts and bolts seem to fall into the right place, and you're like, oh, right, okay. And you very quickly suss out who the Arkham Knight's going to be. But again, I appreciate what they attempted. I appreciate, they tried to put their own spin on it. Again, they tried to mislead us in the marketing campaign by telling us, oh, the Red Hood is going to be a playable character in this, so maybe you thought, oh, it can't be him because the Red Hood's already going to be a playable character in the DLC. But of course, very quickly you discover that Jason Todd is the alter ego of the Arkham Knight.
Yes, and he essentially used Scarecrow as a way to get to Batman for, in his mind, abandoning him. Because one of the flashbacks that Joker plays for Batman is when Joker reveals that there is a new Robin, and you see Todd being like, oh my god, he's left me.
Yeah.
And it plays very much into the venom that he has. Like, Troy Baker comes in to play the Arkham Knight on this one, and you could hear just that emotion coming through on the lines that he would deliver. So you knew that, like, in my mind, that's probably one of the few redeeming qualities about this version of Jason Todd, in my opinion.
Yep.
But with everything that's been going on here and fending off the militia, Batman and Oracle end up having to do a couple of big, massive tank battles with the Batmobile. That's the other thing about the Batmobile. It's a tank.
Yeah. It's very, it's very reminiscent of Nolan's Tumbler, also with a twist of, it's also got a comic twist to it as well. I think in relation to the Batmobile, when it was first announced, I think we were all so pumped. I think it's great in-game. It's got a great purpose. It's just far too much relied on in the game. It's not... You need the Batmobile far too often. And I think it's one of the major detriments to this game.
Like, there was a lot of things they could have done to involve the Batmobile in a fair enough way, but when it's the focal point of a lot of things in the game, it really detracts from it. The fact that the Batmobile makes up the majority of the Riddler missions as well.
Yeah.
That's one of the other things that bugs me with it.
Well, I think one of the major things once we also finish the plot of the actual game, one of the major things about this game is it brings back, spoilers again, it brings back a major villain from Batman Arkham Origins, Deathstroke. And when I heard Deathstroke's voice come through the Batmobile, I was like, oh my god, we're going to have a repeat of the battle from Arkham Origins. I was pumped. And then he's reduced to a tank battle, and I was like, oh shit.
At first, you were pumped, and then your aspirations were pumped.
Yes.
But I just wasn't fond of the Batmobile in that regard. But thankfully, we did briefly get to see the Batmobile get blown up at one point, so I was happy with that.
Yes.
So, with everything that has been going on, and with Gordon and Robin in the hands of Scarecrow, Batman's only option is to surrender to Scarecrow. And Scarecrow takes Batman to where it all began, Arkham Asylum, where in front of the entire world, Scarecrow unmasks Batman as Bruce Wayne. And then we have a very interesting finishing sequence. Batman is repeatedly injected with fear toxin to try and make him break in front of the public. But while this is going on the outside, in Batman's head, he and the Joker are essentially having their final battle.
Yes.
And you get a brilliant part where Joker has a moment where he kills everyone. He then sees a vision where there's no one at his funeral. He's like, oh, who's put this up? This is a very poor thing. Oh, look, the head's fallen off my statue.
Yes.
And eventually you realize the Joker's greatest fear is being forgotten.
Which is just, splendid. That is the Joker.
Like, he wants to be remembered for the anarchy he creates. And Batman, in his mind, defeats the Joker. And we do get this was the moment that I marked out so much for this. Batman grabs Joker by the neck. I am vengeance.
Yeah.
I am the night. I am Batman. Kicks his ass, puts him in a big container, and Joker fades away from his mind. Only then, we now snap back into reality. Batman just looks at Scarecrow just like, I'm not afraid anymore, Crane. Scarecrow gets ready to shoot Batman, only Jason Todd saves Batman.
What? I thought he was the Arkham Knight.
People didn't realise that.
Yeah.
He saves Batman, and Batman, in the ultimate, irony, injects Scarecrow with his own toxin.
Yeah.
And Batman just beats him up, and at that point, he speaks with Robin and Gordon, where they're like, what are you going to do now? And Batman's story's like, after tonight, there will be no more Batman, but not until Gotham is safe. And so then you can spend the rest of the game playing through, beating the other villains if you haven't done so already, at which point Batman will trigger the Nightfall Protocol, where he returns to Wayne Manor, and the press have gathered to be like, oh, what is Batman going to do now that we know he's Bruce Wayne?
Of course he
Batman
will.
gets home, walks in the door, boom! Wayne Manor is destroyed. And potentially, Alfred and Bruce are dead.
Yeah, well, that's secret identity out there. He's got to make that decision.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, Rocksteady, we believe, might be continuing this franchise. We don't know. We'll discuss that in a moment. But of course, I think it was a brilliant bookend in the series. I think it was the most natural progression to have that explosion at the end of the game, to shore up their Arkham franchise, and obviously to make sure no one continues that. But the story we've discussed so far is only part of what we're going to discuss. There's so many aspects to this game we're going to have to get into. First of all, as you mentioned, the Rogues Gallery are one of the only groups that are left in Gotham. We have Two-Face, again, played by the wonderful Troy Baker. Penguin, played by the wonderful Nolan North. Harley is now solo, no longer got the Joker. Again, that role was reprised by Tara Strong. We also have Firefly returning from Arkham Origins, and a plethora of other characters featured in this game. So, Daniel, let's talk about the side quests. What was your favourite side quest in the game?
Easily Man-Bat.
That moment when you swing up to the roof and he appears out of nowhere. Oh my god, I shit my pants.
I think everyone did. One of my favourite things I do sometimes is I will look up compilations on YouTube of gamers who react to it and just all at the same time just go, what the hell? Shit, what was that?
And how good we got a game with Man-Bat. One character I thought the Batman mythology that we wouldn't get in an Arkham game was Man-Bat, but they actually made Man-Bat real. You played that game and you went, man, they could make Man-Bat work in live action.
Yeah, for anyone who maybe isn't too familiar with Man-Bat's story, he is a doctor who wants to try and cure deafness and tinnitus. And so he decides to, for some reason, attempt using vampire bat DNA. Of course, it goes horribly wrong, and he mutates into a humanoid bat, essentially. And he appears in the game you don't see him for the first part, but then just randomly after one of the missions, you hit to grapple up to a rooftop, and he just greets you there with a loud shriek.
Of course, as I've referenced in the previous podcast in Arkham City, I was protesting the return of Lauren Lester, the man who played Robin and Nightwing in Batman the Animated Series and the New Adventures of Batman. Lauren Lester actually returns to the Arkham series in this game. He plays Dr. Kirk Lanston, who's the alter ego of Man-Bat. So I thought that was quite nice, Rocksteady, including Lauren, who of course was Kevin Conroy's Robin in Batman the Animated Series into this universe.
True, I mean, he returned as he played Kurt Langstrom. Nightwing, of course, for this game was portrayed by Scott Porter. Did quite a good job on it, if you ask me. In terms of the other rogues gallery that we have in this, we ended up getting treated quite well with a DLC pack that was put out. Yeah,
I think one thing you can criticise a lot of games for, is the unnecessary DLC. The Arkham Knight DLC, I put up there with some of the greatest DLC we've ever got. Of course, we got the main DLC we got was the Batgirl DLC, which we finally got to see Barbara before she was paralysed, before she was Oracle, as Batgirl, Barbara Gordon, in her prime. And this DLC is just a great DLC.
Yep, it's set, I believe, a few months before Arkham Asylum itself. And you get to see Barbara attempting to save her father from the Joker.
Of course, synonymously, Barbara Gordon Batgirl will always be tied to the Joker because of what the Joker did to her in The Killing Joke. But it was so good to see Tim Drake, Robin, and Barbara working together. Again, different moves, a very different gameplay to playing as Batman, Robin, Nightwing. It was great to play as Batgirl, and finally we got that final piece of the Bat family everybody's waiting for.
It was brilliant to watch, and even just play, rather, because the main thing that I liked as well was that the grappling system, they basically just made it the grappling system from Arkham Asylum to tie it in with the game.
Yeah.
So there was no slingshot grapples or anything, it was just the way it was then.
Take notes, WB Montreal.
Please do. Going to the other DLC that we had a mission thrown in with the League of Assassins, where it appears there is a little civil war going on with them. The one thing I'll actually note about the DLC that added the other villains was some of the lines sounded like they were recorded on phones. I don't know if you've noticed that.
Yeah, it did feel like that. I feel like the DLC, I'm pretty sure, fun enough, I talk about W Montreal, they actually created the Batgirl DLC, which is so weird. When you watch that Arkham Knight, the inconsistencies in the gameplay to Arkham Asylum, yet you've mentioned the grappling returns to the old format from Arkham Asylum. Why did they not add that nuance into Arkham Origins? I just don't know.
I think probably because it was a larger map, if they had done it the way that the grapple system was in Arkham Asylum, they would have basically been shooting themselves in the foot.
Yeah, true that. But of course, we also got in these additional content, we got Harley Quinn's Revenge that returned, where Harley is set prior to Arkham Knight, but Harley's on a mission to break out her friend Poison Ivy from the clutches of the Scarecrow.
Yeah, we were spoiled for DLC in terms of the characters. Harley got a DLC, Batgirl, Catwoman, Nightwing, and Robin all received DLC for the game.
And Red Hood as well.
Oh yeah, Red Hood as well. Yeah, he was one of the pre-order exclusives, I believe.
Yeah.
It was... Yeah. They certainly filled it in. I will say one of my favourite of the DLC missions is the Mr. Freeze mission.
Wow, I love it. If you play Arkham City and you've never heard of Mr. Freeze before, you just get the basis, of his story, of Nora, how this guy's been fighting for his wife all his life. this game gives you the ending. It gives you a fitting ending for Nora and Mr. Freeze, and it does bring a tear to your eye every time you play it.
It was, I think, just the way that they wrote that dialogue between them. Had they done it any other way, it wouldn't have worked.
Yeah, I feel like it.
Very, very happy.
I feel like if they, there could have been another way of writing it. You could have went, oh, here we go, here's Mr. Freeze back again, fighting for his wife. I feel like this time, the way they were trying so hard to give everything an ending, it just works so well, and it's so good. In this game, it wraps up so many character story arcs, and you can see the ending. Of course, Mr. Freeze, we've discussed before, Poison Ivy sacrifices her life for Gotham. It gives a lot of these characters an ending, and it's so fitting for the last entry in the series, well, to date, from Rocksteady. It's so fitting to see that.
Yeah, they also made sure that you were spoiled for choice in terms of how you wanted to customize the game. You could not only customize the skins on the Batmobile, you could customize the outfits that the characters wore. My favorite aspect of this is they released a challenge pack themed around the Dark Knight, and it only included the tumbler. Everyone was like, "Where's the outfit? Where's the Dark Knight suit? We've been wanting it in the games for ages." And if I'm remembering correctly, one person at Rocksteady took it upon themselves to make the Dark Knight suit for the game.
Yeah, I think one of the main aspects that makes this game so replayable, because a lot of people will be like, oh, once you play it once, the reason you can play this game and so many different skins, the Dark Knight skin is perfection. I think the 60s Adam West suit that was released, again, perfection. And my personal favourite, Batman vs Superman, the Ben Affleck skin. Wow, the detail on that skin. You can see the tears, the cuts. And again, a suit that was already iconic in live action already, it just takes on a different dynamic because you can already see the detail in the game of the history of the character, of the previous battles. And I think that was just a lovely. I think that was free as well. That was a free DLC. I think that was just a lovely inclusion, as well as obviously the Batman vs Superman Batmobile.
It was also one other thing I actually loved about this is there was a suit made for Batman Beyond, but it was an adaptation of the Arkham suit.
Yes. I
absolutely loved that one.
Yep, I love that. I think that there's a lot of suits in there. Of course, the regular skins, Dark Knight Returns comes back in. Flashpoint Batman, Thomas Wayne, Perfection again comes back in. We also get Gotham by Gaslight. That's there as well. And of course, Justice League 3000, which is also a regular suit to bring into these games. The options, the selection Rocksteady gave us for the final edition absolutely exceeded all expectations, and I'm so happy that we got this.
This, I think, was the best way they could have celebrated the games, because as they were saying at that point, this was going to be their last go at the Batman title. And they wanted to go out in a way that was fitting of what they had created, and this was the way to go out.
Yeah, one suit as well I've not mentioned. We got to see Michael Keaton's 1989 Batman suit in all its glory. The Anton Furst design, the Batmobile, the Tim Burton Batmobile again. It's so fitting to see that, especially because the Batman 89 movie inspired the Bruce Timm inspired Batman the Animated Series that came 3 years after. It's so great we actually got to see that suit in-game, got to play as Michael Keaton's Batman.
It was a brilliant collection of the suits that they made. I absolutely enjoyed every single design. I
think as well, one major thing they put in the game, you've mentioned already, is the race track maps, which was amazing. We got, of course, as you said, we got the Dark Knight sequence. We also got the Batman 66 Batmobile, whereas you could drive through the set of Batman 66, the movie, and we had an interpretation of the theme, the na-na-na-na-na-na-na Batman theme in the background. Yeah, just they certainly put in a lot to call back. They even put in new done-up versions of previous challenge maps from the other games. Yeah.
It's like they're a little kind of nod and wink to what had been there before.
Yeah.
I was very happy with the DLC they put out. It was very much worth the season pass.
Yeah, for once, and it kept going as well. You know, it consistently kept reducing month on month. It wasn't just
it was
a case of
6 straight months of DLC.
Yeah, it was absolutely fantastic. Again, we've praised this game to the roof. There's not a lot of negative when it comes to this game. Again, the Batmobile will always be the biggest negative, and I think Rocksteady will be punching themselves because I think they probably got really excited. Finally, we've got a platform that we can introduce the Batmobile, and maybe they got a little bit too excited and then let's just use it. And I think maybe, in hindsight, just a little bit less Batmobile.
Yeah, like, if you want to use the Batmobile, give it a storyline reason for it to be there. Don't just have it there because it's there.
Yeah. So,
like, if you want to do a tank battle, just do like 1 or 2 tank battles. Don't have it that every mission depends on a tank battle.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. So let's just start this thing up then. So final thoughts on Batman Arkham Knight.
I would say a very fitting end to the series that Rocksteady created, and then to see how it wrapped up everything that was done, even including Origins, absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, totally agree. It's, for me, 5 years on, I still play this game once a week, you know, and that says a lot, you know, 5 years on. I think it's one thing we can take from this, I said at the start, is Rocksteady laid down the benchmark of how superhero games should be based from now on. And I'm so happy that we've got this Arkham franchise. No matter what happens in the future, is we have got this Arkham franchise forever, and it's going to be our special wee Batman, you know, world.
Oh yeah, agree with you.
So, I'll just quickly wrap up what the critics were saying about Arkham Knight. Of course, as you can imagine, high praise. Again, a little bit pernickety about the Batmobile, but 8s, 9s, 10s across the board. I did see GameSpot gave it a 7 out of 10. I don't know where they got that review from, but
yeah, I mean, the Batmobile, like we were saying, could have been used a little less.
But yeah, great game, and I'm seriously happy we got that. But of course, Arkham Knight came and went. Rocksteady confirmed to us that'll be the last in the Arkham franchise. Since we've had a lot of speculation on future games, but we did get in 2016 the Turn to Arkham.
Yes, the exclusive remaster of Arkham Asylum and Arkham City.
Yes. So, of course, well, a lot of these remaster games, what basically happened was they went back to the original negative of the game, updated it with a more, you know, modern model. The main thing you get is the graphics are improved, but especially with a game like Batman Arkham Asylum, these games are dark for a reason. You know, these games have been created as dark because they don't put the detail in, but they make it a dark noir aesthetic, so you don't see it. So all of a sudden, when you're doing a remaster and you're brightening the game up, a lot of minor smudges and flaws start to become apparent. And I think they ran into a lot of that when they were remastering this game. And as well with remasters, they get heavily criticised because they don't improve on the game. All they are is just genuinely a polish up.
The only improvement I would say is maybe more just the graphics were improved, and I think some of the mechanics on a couple of the games were improved.
Slightly. I think one of the major things about getting the Return to Arkham package is all the downloadable content, all the DLC is available in the game for no extra fee. You get it all in the one game, so I think that is a massive selling point towards the Return to Arkham package.
Like, I was very happy to see it put out, because obviously switching to PS4, I couldn't very easily just build up the PS3 because now mine's is packing it in after 4 minutes now.
Yeah,
so I was happy to get the remasters on PS4 and play it again.
And as I say, because these games were almost 10 years old when the Return to Arkham was released, the frame rate was capped at 30, so it meant there was a bit of lagginess there. But which is not obviously the only way to improve that is if you go back and basically recreate the game from scratch, which of course there was no appetite to do that. So since then, we've had so many rumours about the future of the Arkham series. But one studio who haven't spoken ever since the release of Arkham Knight, and it was the only time they spoke since then, was to announce that they were releasing a Matter of the Family DLC we spoke of in Arkham Knight, was WB Montreal.
Mm-hmm.
So there has been so much speculation about the future of the Arkham series, but we have had confirmation there was a Damian Wayne game planned, which was going to be a sequel to Arkham Knight, that was cancelled quite early on. It's been, if you look online, you'll find the concept art for that. Again, it was going to revolve around Damian Wayne and Gotham riding a motorcycle. Some of the rogues appeared, but again, it was a very different time period. Personally, I'm very happy we didn't get that, because, as I've said already previously on the previous podcast, I'm not a fan of the Damian Wayne story and Batman lore. But it just showed you that they were looking forward in the Arkham series to make a sequel.
Yeah, it was, Damian Wayne has been a very divisive character in the mythos of Batman ever since he was introduced. Not just for how he was introduced, but more so just for his characterization. I feel that a game with him would be very different, but also I feel they would risk being untrue to the Damian Wayne character, which would be another detriment to it.
Yeah. So we've also had rumours and confirmation that it was planned a Suicide Squad game coming from WB Montreal, which never made it off the ground. Again, that sounds a bit more interesting, a Suicide Squad game. I don't know how it would work, having a squad, game. We already see there's a game coming out this year, the Avengers game, which has really struggled. You can definitely see it in the gameplay, having multiple characters on screen at once. So I'm not sure how a Suicide Squad game would have worked, although I was definitely interested in it.
I really don't know how I would feel about a Suicide Squad game. I'll admit, the Suicide Squad as a series and as a product, I personally just would not be interested in a game.
Yeah, of course I understand.
I would say maybe more they work better as a movie title or a TV show, but I don't see it being at the point where you could get a game out of it.
Yeah, I think possibly WB, what happened to the hierarchy at Warner Bros. Probably they saw they had a commercial hit, maybe not a critical hit, but they had a commercial hit with the Suicide Squad movie in 2016, and they were probably looking to explore any possibilities to expand on that property, and possibly that's where the idea came from. But I totally agree with you. I think taking it into a video game format would have been a bit different, and I don't know if I'd have enjoyed that.
I'm glad that it ultimately never happened, but I think they need to try and play safe when it comes to games, because there's a lot of things you could try to do, but I feel it'd be one of those occasions where they would throw it at the wall and it would just fall flat.
Yeah. One thing definitely so far is I'm constantly referencing WB Montreal. That is because they have been constantly developing a Batman game, a DC related game. They've been constantly vocal about that behind the scenes, not publicly. But one studio who have confirmed they're working on a new project, but have confirmed it's not a Batman project, is Rocksteady. So we don't know at the moment what Rocksteady are planning, although it's been accepted and rumours seem to be true that they are developing a DC orientated game on their platform. So at the moment we don't know. We're not any clearer. We don't know what that game's going to be. Heavily speculated it could be a Superman game. Some speculate it could be a Green Lantern game. Some speculate a Justice League game. But at the moment, we have no confirmation over what they are developing.
The one I have seen is that there's been a lot of sort of teasing at points where it appears it may be another Batman game for the Arkham series. And if so, then going off their teasing, it would feature the Court of Owls.
Well, that brings me on to the next one. That one, WB, as I say, WB Montreal have been very silent, especially on Twitter, Facebook. They've been very silent ever since they confirmed the release of A Matter of the Family 2015 for Arkham Knight. But on Batman Day 2019, they finally broke their silence and they tweeted, "Capture the night." And of course, that proceeded with a video of the bat signal outside their location in Los Angeles. And basically you saw, sorry, I like to say Los Angeles. Of course, that preceded a video clip outside the studios in Montreal of the bat signal with different logos flashed upon the bat signal. A few days later, they tweeted out the logo, which seems to suggest the Court of Owls will be involved in a future game, but since we've had no confirmation. But heavily speculated this year we will get confirmation of what WB Montreal are planning for Batman, and many are speculating there's going to be a soft reboot to the Arkham series, and they're going to be planning a new Batman series which will be in a bigger DC gaming universe, which for me sounds amazing. I mean, the prospect of having Batman involved with the rest of the Justice League is exactly what I'm looking for. Although, Superman famously has struggled in video game format, the idea of getting a Justice League universe the way the Avengers are about to launch their new video game franchise sounds great.
Yeah, I would happily see what is to be offered from it, because for the moment, the only Batman interaction with the JLA we have seen is in the Injustice series.
Yeah. But
we're wanting to see something outside of it, because Injustice is very heavily anchored around its main central story. Whereas with if we were to get an expanded universe in gaming with the Justice League, there's more scope.
Yeah. Well, all we can do is wait and see. That's everything up here. Daniel, thank you so much for coming on. Can you plug where you're going to be for anybody who wants to follow you?
You generally will hear me on Eat, Sleep, Suplex, Retweet, where we cover wrestling, not just in WWE and other larger companies like AEW, but also more local. We cover Scottish companies such as ICW, Insane Championship Wrestling. We cover Source Wrestling. We cover a lot of ground in our shows. We have regular episodes that come out every Thursday, which you can find on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Suplex Retweet. You can also find us on Spotify, Anchor, all good podcasts and sites. We have our extra feed as well, Suplex Retweet Extra, where we have some other shows that will be released regularly through the week. And if you go over to our YouTube channel, Suplex Retweet, you can watch me putting some of the panel through the riggers in the Quiz Showdown series.
Yep, so if you want to keep in contact with Detective Comic Talks, of course follow us on our Instagram page, Detective Comic Talks, all the one word. If you want to send any messages in reference to today's show, please get in contact with us at detectivecomictalks@gmail.com. Of course, I'll be back very soon with some more podcasts for you guys. Thank you. Goodbye.